All right, welcome on in. It is Monday, September 11th, and the Chicago Bears are 0-1 to start the season. This is Bears Nation Podcast, our inaugural in-season episode, if you will. And Kevin Lapka started this show before we even hit start, said, I don't even want to be here anymore. The quote, I think you should leave, obviously. And I really don't want to do this, which is unusual because Kevin Lapka is usually the optimism guy, the energy guy of this show. And it's not really what's happening today.
I want to face the music, buddy. Not great. I don't want to face the music. I don't want to have to do it. I don't want to sit across from you and have to admit that you might be right about something for once in your life. I don't want to do that, and I'm going to be forced to do it because boy was I wrong. But sure, you're vindicated, but you're not feeling great either.
Oh, no, that was horrific.
I mean, it was horrific.
It was not fun. For anyone who may be just coming out of a coma and may have missed the last events of the last 24 hours.
Be grateful.
The Bears just get absolutely shellacked to open the season against Green Bay. It was an ugly game from start to finish. It was a close game at the first half-ish. And kind of made it a game, but then just everything falls apart. Classic Bears, exactly what I tried to tell Kevin Lapka on the show. History is bound to repeat itself. It's Bears, it's Packers. We know how this story is going to go. It's not going to change. And here we are, once again. The Bears get embarrassed by the Packers at home. The losing streak stretches to 9, and the offense looks horrendous. The defense does not look good, can't stop anybody. Aaron Jones runs all over you. Stop me if you heard that one before. Doesn't matter the quarterback. The Packers are still the Packers. The Bears are still the Bears. And, it's week 1. It's only been 1 week. But I think that – and we said this a little bit last week – that if you had at least made it close and that if you had at least shown signs of progression and that you could be a good team possibly, or that you could at least take the next step, that you would take a loss and you wouldn't feel great about the loss, but you would be able to walk away with some silver lining. Can't even do that today because the offense, as I said, looks atrocious. I was almost dead on, by the way, with how the game was going to start. Do you remember that? Do you remember this conversation?
Yeah, I do.
That I said the Bears were going to start. They were going to take the ball and they were going to go run, screen, run. Oh my God. And then they were going to punt. I was almost right on. The screen gets the first down and things continue to progress from there. But I was almost directly correct. And I honestly wish I was because for basically the entire offseason, I thought we were done with screen passes, Kevin Lapka. I thought screen passes being the majority of the game plan were so far behind us. And yet you have 2 throws all day that go more than 20 yards. Stunner, they're big plays and one ends in a touchdown, but mostly dink and dunk screen passes, runs that go nowhere. And Justin Fields has 20 completions, gets over 200 yards, has a touchdown, but it was ugly. And most of it wasn't even him. It was a lot of screen passes. It was a lot of nothingness and just empty yards, empty plays that go nowhere.
Where to start?
I think we start with that first failure of a 3rd and 4th down attempt to try and first you try the sneak with Cole Kmet to get the first down. That doesn't work. Then you go for it on 4th and inches, which I was surprised by. I thought Matt Eberflus was going to punt for sure. Yeah. Goes for it. Justin Fields has this half-hearted kind of.
I wouldn't call it half-hearted. It wasn't. They just didn't win a line of scrimmage. They didn't win a line of scrimmage. He was forced to go over the top.
It was just odd. There wasn't a reach. He didn't reach. I don't know. It was bizarre. Just to me. Okay, maybe half-hearted wasn't the word. It was bizarre. It was a bizarre, how play. He approached it. Yeah, 2 back-to-back bad plays on 3rd and 1 and then 4th and inches. The spot wasn't helpful. You can make your gripes there with the refs and the chains, whatever you want to do there. But let's just start there because that was just some bizarre play calling in a key spot that Kevin, you talked about last week where you could open the game and you score and you take control of the game right away. And really you win that 4th down conversion. That's a swing play.
Change the course of the game.
That is a huge play in the game that then, wasn't it so deflating? Back-to-back plays, weird plays that you don't convert. And it's just the air gets sucked. I was sitting in a bar with a couple of our friends and I'm sitting there and just, you could feel the air just leave the room. As soon as like it was third down, they don't get it. Everyone's like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. Oh, they're going to go for it. And then kind of excitement, that trepidation starts to build up. They're going for it on 4th and 1. You know, that's how the Bears pick their spots when they're trying to be aggressive, and then they don't get it. And then just immediately it felt like you knew exactly where the game was going. Yeah, and then it did. And it went exact to that exact pit of hell.
You had the opportunity, right? I mean, we talked about, I think I said, like, hey, if you win the coin toss, I think I said something along the lines of like, whoever wins the coin toss is like going to win the game or something. Not like that.
Yeah,
but like,
something along those lines.
Win the coin toss, set the tone. Like, you have to do that. They win the coin toss. They get the ball. Well, I don't know. I actually didn't see the coin toss. Did they defer? Or did they win? I have no idea.
I didn't either. I missed that part.
Bottom line is they had the football. They had the opportunity to be at home and score first in week 1, set the tone, and the rest is history, right? Like, that's what you had to do. And like, if we knew that was probably what should have happened, how do the coaches not know that? Like, that's what this boils down to. Like that, like, and that's what we're segueing to when we talk about where to start. Like, that's the storyline. Like, the storyline is coaching, and and specifically offensive coaching, specifically Luke Getsy. But that, like, because of what Luke Getsy did does not absolve Matt Eberflus from everything that occurred today. Like, they looked unprepared. They looked unmotivated to start that game. Like,
yes, I agree with that.
Like, you got to come out and punch them in the damn mouth, and they and they didn't do that, and the Packers punched you right back, and then they kept punching you. Like Sean Strickland against Adesanya on Saturday night, it was just boom, 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 boom after that first knockdown, and the rest was history. Like, that's what it was. And it's baffling. It is baffling that you have 6 months, or whenever the schedule is released in May, right? You have 4 months, right? You have 4 months to prepare for this opponent.
Well,
4 months
the teams
to prepare
probably
for this
know
game.
ahead of
it. Yeah, probably. You know who you're playing. You know all the personnel, and you get a little lucky because they missed one of their biggest playmakers in Christian Watson days before the game. You know you're playing Jordan Love. Sure, he's only started one game, but you have enough film. You know what his limitations are, what he's capable of. You've seen a lot of the players on this team in the years past with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon and even Romeo Doubs last year in the offensive line. Like, you know what's ahead of you. You have 4 months to prepare. And you come out and it's your first drive. It's scripted plays. This is supposed to be the best drive. Hey, you were 76% on opening drives last year. There's like the one department you're good at. And that's what you come out with? Lateral passes, screen passes, runs with no push, nothing down the field. You don't even use the guy you trade the number 1 overall pick for in the first, few drives of the game. What are you doing? It's illogical. It's unfathomable. Like, I've thought about it since the game ended at 6:30 last night, and there hasn't been a single reason that crossed my mind of why that this was the game plan. And I tried to convince myself, and I tweeted it, that at the first half, I said, you know what? Maybe this is a brand new team, a lot of change. I don't blame Luke Getsy in that first half for taking it conservative, getting people acclimated, getting the O-line acclimated after all the injuries, and getting everybody on the same page. And then, hey, second half, you catch them off guard. The safeties are playing down. You hit them over the top, right? You exposed them in the second half after everything that you kind of set up in the first half. But that didn't happen either. So now there's no logical explanation for anything that we saw offensively in the first quarter and throughout the game. And I know we'll have a separate conversation about Justin Fields, but as what we're talking about right now is coaching. They were unprepared. It makes no sense how we were unprepared. We knew the magnitude of the moment. The fans knew the magnitude of the moment. The city knew the magnitude of the moment, and apparently the Bears did it.
Yeah, I mean, the game plan is a really good point here because it didn't seem like a game plan. It was weird. It was like everything that we've been hearing all offseason about how they want to be explosive, and Justin Fields wants to throw for 3,000 yards and so on and so forth. And it just wasn't that. It was all, like I said, all these screenplays and all these plays that just went nowhere. And some of that was the offensive line. Once again, Justin Fields was having to run for his life a lot of the time, and there was no push from the offensive line, as you said, Kevin. And it was just, okay, Justin Fields, let's hope you can be an athlete and make a play. And he did do that a couple of times, but you can't that doesn't win you football games. It might a couple times. You might win 1 or 2 games, but it's not going to win you multiple games. It's not going to win you a game like that. Like, Justin Fields can bail you out only so many times until your luck runs out. And that's what you saw. I mean, DJ Moore, like you said, gets 2 targets. They both come in the second quarter. And then Chase Claypool just doing dumb stuff all day long. When he was existent though, was a negative, penalties. Getting penalties, and it's just doing weird stuff. I mean, everything about this franchise is just so disappointing. It seems like either Luke Getsy maybe doesn't trust Justin Fields, and as you said, we'll get into that conversation. But
let's get into it now. Can we get into that now?
So one stat that I saw from Tom Fornelli of CBS Sports, that Justin Fields' air yards per attempt was 3 point something, sandwiched directly in between Desmond Ridder and Baker Mayfield yesterday. I mean, just disgusting. Desmond Ridder and Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield, say whatever you want, but Desmond Ridder, come on. Like, Justin Fields is able to throw the ball. We've seen it. We saw it yesterday on the touchdown throw to Mooney. It was a great throw, but it just seems like Luke Getsy is unwilling to let Justin Fields throw the ball anywhere beyond the sticks. It's crazy. Like, will not let him throw the ball barely beyond the line of scrimmage. I think I saw another one, and I forget where I saw it. It was on Twitter, X, whatever, that Justin Fields threw the longest distance between his completions and the first down marker. Like, and it was like 7 yards or something was the distance between the average of Justin Fields' targets and then the distance to the first down marker, which is insane. I get it. You added playmakers and you like Cole Kmet. If you're not going to use DJ Moore, and we like Darnell Mooney, but like, you can't expect those guys to make those plays every single time. That's crazy. And then, I mean, I'll save this for later, but I mean, the things that were said after the game were so bizarre too by some of the players. But yeah, I mean, Luke Getsy just seems to not trust Justin Fields. Unwilling to let him throw the ball, Kevin.
Like, part of me still wants to believe that the reasoning for that is that Getsy knows that the offensive line cannot give him enough time to even take shots on the field. So they're not designing, plays for that. But that, like, this is the, like, if the Bears aren't a playoff team, right? If you progress and you win, let's not even talk about that right now. If you win 7 games, you have to know if Justin Fields is like that.
Correct.
We all know that we have to know if Justin Fields is the guy. You're not going to learn that if this is the game plan.
Also true.
And, Justin Fields came on the post-game press conference. I think Justin Fields is very good about, saying the right things, taking accountability, taking responsibility, not making excuses. But he said that the game plan was horizontal, more lateral passing than vertical passing.
Yep, he sure did.
So here's the next step of the maturation process for Justin Fields, because I think what we saw on the field was fine. I'm like, again, we'll break this down. You need to go into the office today, in Luke Getsy's office, and say, no more of this bullshit. We're doing things my way now. Like, this is how we're doing it. And I know he's a very coachable player. He's going to listen to his coach. He's going to do what he's told. Sometimes you got to be the asshole. Aaron Rodgers for 20 years in Green Bay was an asshole.
I mean, Jay Cutler,
asshole. Right? With the Mike Martz years. Yeah. He literally said fuck you to him on the field and ran his own play. And I think they gained yards on the play, like a deep shot to Alshon Jeffrey or something. I'm not saying I'm not saying Justin Fields has to say fuck you to Luke Getsy, but you got to go in there and say, man, like, I whatever you're trying to do, we're not doing that anymore. You got to trust me. We're throwing the ball down the field. We have DJ Moore here. We have a great connection. The one time we threw the ball down the field, it's a touchdown to Darnell Mooney. You give me a little bit of time. You give me a down the field play. I'll make the right throw. He did that. It was a perfect ball to Mooney in the end zone, which is like, wow, shocking. But like, he needs to take and he's a good leader too. He's a good leader with his teammates, but he needs to go into Eberflus's office today, into Luke, or they're probably off today, but on Tuesday, into Luke Getsy's office on Tuesday, and say, this is the way we're going to do things now, because yesterday is unacceptable. Yesterday didn't work. We're not going to win football games that way. We didn't win football games doing that last year. We have a more talented team. We had the more talented team on Sunday, and it didn't look that way. It didn't appear that way. We have to make changes, and he has to assert that. All the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, especially the recent ones. Patrick Mahomes does that, I guarantee. And that's what, that's the reason they hired Matt Nagy as offensive coordinator in Kansas City, is because those two work so well together and they bounce off of each other. I don't see that with Luke Getsy and Justin. I don't see bouncing off of each other. All I see is Luke Getsy telling Justin Fields to do all this lateral shit, and Justin kind of being like, probably in the back of his mind, well, I know it's a dumb decision, but I'm going to do it because I'm a coachable player and I'm a good teammate. But man, my message to him, be a little bit of an asshole right now. You have to take authority. You have to take leadership with those coaches and say, we're going to do things my way. If it doesn't work, guess what? It ain't going to get worse than what we saw last week. And the times that they have done it in years past, it has worked. So he has a little bit of historical evidence to prove that, hey, this is the right thing to do. So that's kind of what I'm taking away from it. Like, it feels like he should go in there and take authority and say, this is the way we're doing things.
One thing that I want to focus on that you said is about how, Luke Getsy might not trust the offensive line to create the protection to take deep shots. That still doesn't make sense even for screens, because, okay, if you're not trusting the offensive line to create enough time for Justin Fields to, get the ball deep down the field, how are you going to trust the offensive line to block and create space on a screen pass? Like, it's
almost more difficult,
right?
Honestly.
I would argue so, yeah. And so that just doesn't really make sense. I agree. Justin Fields isn't going to do that. He's not going to barge in it's just not who he is. But I agree that you said, like, he no bones about it. He said, yeah, this was the game plan. How can that be your game plan? In what instance in NFL history has an offense built on screen passes ever worked for anyone, especially
the Niners? I mean, the West Coast offense, Niners with Garoppolo.
But I mean, also look at what the Niners, like, the Niners have weapons, like, and they have one of the best.
Bears have weapons too now.
But I mean, also the Niners had Kyle Shanahan and one of the better coaches in the league. And it's just, I mean, it's just bad all around. And I think we're focusing on the offense, obviously, because that's what we were excited to see. But the defense was brutal. It started great. The defense keeps you in it for a long time. And I mean, Tyreek Stevenson's trying to lay the hammer on people behind the line of scrimmage. That was awesome to see. It started fine, and the defense gave you some juice, especially after that failed conversion attempt. But just the coverage, like the amount of times that the Packers had 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10,
13.
and you just let them convert every single time. Like, you could not buy a stop. It was insane. It was asinine. It was crazy. And you just didn't press at all. You rushed 4 every single time. You didn't try to put, and I get it, you don't have a lot of pass rushers, but that's what you signed DeMarcus Walker for. That's what you signed Yannick Ngakoue for, because you're trying to at least rectify that. And it didn't even seem like you tried. Kind of like how Luke Getsy didn't even seem to try to create, a vertical offense. It seemed like, Alan Williams and the defensive coaches didn't even try to put Jordan Love under any kind of duress. They just let him sit back there and wait for guys to get open, which they did, because you were playing very, very soft, coverage, and just wait for guys to get open. And he did. And then he got burned for it every single time.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive game plan was also baffling. And, like, we know that the pressure and the front four is not great, and we knew that going in. But, man, and credit to Dan Bernstein from 6-7 The Score, who said this when I was, working before this. Justin Jones did not appear on the stat sheet.
Jeez.
All you have to do is touch a player on a tackle and you get an assist. Did not show up on the stat sheet. No, Travis Homer had more tackles on Sunday than Justin Jones did. Unbelievable.
Yikes.
So Yannick Ngakoue was fine, right? He had a sack. He was the only guy. He had 2 tackles for loss. He was, getting around. I thought.
And also he was signed a month ago. You signed him off the street a month ago.
Yeah. Tremaine Edmonds was fine. 2 tackles for loss. TJ Edwards, overall 14 tackles, had the one tough play against Aaron Jones on the Texas route. Yep. But you don't want your linebacker covering a running back in this situation anyway. Correct. But that's kind of just, that's what it calls for. There probably should have been safety help there anyway, so he doesn't run for a freaking 40-yard touchdown. Nonetheless, this is what needs to happen up front. Justin Jones should not see the field next week. Andrew Billings should not see the field next week. Why not just throw Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens into what do you have to lose? These are young guys who are going to bring a little bit of energy, get you on the damn stat sheet. I mean, Gervon Dexter was on the stat sheet. Zach Pickens played like 17% of the snaps. Get these guys on the field. You're getting nothing from Andrew Billings and from Justin Jones, and even from DeMarcus Walker. I mean, he had 2 tackles and 1 tackle for loss, but we know what's there at edge. But specifically for those guys in the middle, I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean, that was the root of all issues. It felt like the secondary could only hold up so long. And I thought that the secondary would be good. And that was where we just kind of look up at the TV, and that's the Eddie Jackson. That's a bad play on Eddie Jackson. The first touchdown to Romeo Doubs, he kind of just lets him, get behind. That's a bad play by Eddie there, and he kind of took accountability for it on there, saying that's on him. But you got to get pressure. Jordan Love had all day. The ball kind of bounced their way as well. Like on that, like how is Luke Musgrove open with not a defender within 40 yards? And I know it was a kind of a weird play where Jordan Love fumbles the football, but that was designed. It's not like, oh, Luke Musgrove. No, that was designed. Like Greg Olsen drew it out. I thought Greg Olsen was terrible yesterday anyway. Drew it out. Like that was a route, that was a concept that was designed and no one was there. But it starts up front. The secondary can only hold up for so long. Kyler Gordon might be out for a couple weeks. He left the game early with a hand injury. They got to figure something, and they got to say, you know what? If we can't get the pressure, send Jermaine Edmonds, send Jack Sanborn. Like you have to do something. Your leading sacker last year was Jaquan Brisker. You got to find a way to make it different. Yannick Ngakoue hopefully can, continue to progress after being signed just a month ago. But for me, like the only solution that I can find is obviously blitzing more. I think in certain situations, like don't be afraid to blitz on 3rd and 13. I know you want to drop back into coverage and try to prevent that, but look what that did for you last week against an offense that's, had receivers named Romeo Doubs, Samari Toure, and Jalen Reed.
Well, to be fair, Romeo Doubs might actually be kind of good.
He actually might be good. But without Christian Watson and a rookie tight end, I mean, you're letting these things happen. I just, no excuse not to have Dexter and Pickens out there as the starters next week. No excuse. None.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And somebody in the chat, Football CF Candy, said something interesting about Eberflus and potential coaching change. If the team hits under 5 wins, do people have to boycott to try and force a coaching change? I don't think that's going to happen regardless. I think if they win 0 games, like maybe Eberflus is gone, but even then, because if they win 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 games under 5, whatever, like I still think that means that Justin Fields is the scapegoat probably in his 3rd year. They say, okay, he didn't do enough. He didn't take the leap. He's out. He wasn't our guy anyway. So now in that instance, you have a top 10 pick, at least one. We'll see what Carolina does. They're probably going to lose a bunch of games. But if you have 2 top 10 picks, then you are looking at packaging those picks for Caleb Williams or Drake May at the top of the draft. And then ownership gives Ryan Poles and Matty Eberflus probably at least 2 more years to say, all right, you got your quarterback. And then we just do this whole cycle over again, because then the quarterback outlasts the coaches, but then the quarterback's still young enough where a new coach says, well, I can make this work. And then that quarterback is gone. And then the new regime says, well, we didn't have our guy, and on and on and on we go until we just die.
I was asking myself this yesterday, and I know that these are 2 of the best coaches in the NFL, but like, I think the Bears win that game with Kyle Shanahan. I think the Bears win that game with Sean McVay. I think the Bears win that game with Matt LaFleur. I hate to say that because I was under the belief that Matt.
You just mentioned all like 3 of the best coaches in the league, though, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the verdict was kind of out on Matt LaFleur just because I thought that with Aaron Rodgers gone, he might get exposed, right? And I made analogies to like Frank Vogel and David Black when LeBron left, and the way Bill has looked since Tom Brady, all those different things, right? And I thought he was going to get exposed, but hey, that guy actually might be a really good coach. His game plan against the Bears defense yesterday was phenomenal. He did a really good job of putting Jordan Love in favorable situations and getting guys open. And like to acknowledge that, yeah, Matt Eberflus is a 2nd-year head coach, but to acknowledge that the Bears would have won the game with the other coach as your coach it's a sobering thing. It's a really sobering thing.
Well, because, this is a fun exercise, actually. I want to run through this really quick. Do the Bears win this game with Kevin Stefanski?
Yes.
Do they win this game
yesterday?
Do they win this game with Zach Taylor?
Yes.
Do they win this game with Brian Daboll?
I think yes, even though I think yesterday was just kind of one of those days tough for the Giants.
Do they win? I mean, I think
the Cowboys might also be the Super Bowl champions, but anyway,
that's a
different story.
That will be in spite of their coaching, though. Do the Bears win this game with Brandon Staley? That might be the first no.
I'm gonna say no to that. It's close.
It's gonna be The Bears absolutely win this game if Dan Campbell is the head coach. And I believe that
100%.
1,000,000,000%.
From what I saw on Thursday night, I believe that. And I think the Lions got bailed out. I think they did not really deserve to win that game. I think the Chiefs beat themselves more than they beat the Lions. But nonetheless, that team was prepared. That team was ready. That team looked motivated.
Do the Bears win this game with Shane Steichen?
Absolutely not. That is
I think
that's
that's kind of an absurd comment. I didn't see anything from Steichen yesterday. Although you had a chance. I mean, it was a 2-score game, and Anthony Richardson goes out, which preserved the Jaguars cover, by the way. I thought I was losing that for sure, but as soon as I saw Baker Mayfield come in for 4th and goal with the game on the line, it was good. Yeah. Anyway, just I don't know. The verdict is out on Matt Eberflus. He had his moments last year for sure, but it's just we'll see. I mean, so honestly, like we may possibly learn more this upcoming week, and we'll get into this on Wednesday when we do the preview. But I think this is going to be like, yes, the Buccaneers beat the Vikings, but the Vikings were a prime regression candidate. Kirk Cousins turns back into a pumpkin, but it's still the Bucs. It's still Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield.
It's still Todd Bowles. What does that mean? It's Todd Bowles. He's been terrible as that.
Right. No, that's what I mean.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. Like it's still Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. Like but they go like what I said when we did our season preview, pretty good defense still. And so it's like this upcoming game, and we'll get into this again on Wednesday. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty big barometer of what the rest of the season is going to be, I think. So
there's a couple things that matter for coaches and for teams in general, right? Like, being prepared for games, and all that week one, like all that matters. But the second, if not most important thing for Super Bowl champion team, I'm not saying the Bears Super Bowl champions, but for good teams that you want to see progress, how do you respond to adversity, right? How and from a game-to-game standpoint, from an in-game standpoint, all of those things. They didn't do it from an in-game standpoint. They did not respond to the adversity well on Sunday. But from the small sample size we have of a year with this coaching staff, they've been able to handle adversity game to game pretty well, right? And the biggest example of that was the mini buy that we referenced so many times, right? But those are real things. Those
but also
are real
that
things.
you went on a losing streak and you could talk about if you were trying to lose
again,
those games,
it's just so hard. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to evaluate that because it felt like they were trying to lose and all that. But like, I do believe that in general, this is a coaching staff that may be able to handle adversity well and stay composed, right? Like I don't think the ceiling for Matt Eberflus as a head coach is high at all. But maybe he's not a guy that lets the locker room collapse. Maybe he's not a guy that lets the team crumble and fall apart. And that's the hope that I have.
His ceiling is probably being Zach Taylor, right?
No, that's too high. Zach Taylor,
you think that's too high?
I don't.
But that Super Bowl run was more about
Joe Burrow
and like, does anyone really think that Zach Taylor is like an awesome coach?
Not awesome, but
he's a slightly above average.
Sure. So maybe, and if that's a ceiling, that could be good enough for you to win the Super Bowl. It's just not a guy who's probably going to be here for as long as you'd want him to be here, right? Forever, which is, the ideal situation. But when the thing that you said that stuck out to me was, I think we'll learn more about this team next week than we will from the first week. And I think you're absolutely right. And I tweeted this because, I can't roll it back and say it's just week one. Sure. I was the one who came on the podcast and said the magnitude of this game and everything, like I'll be in perpetual hell if we lose and all these different things. Yep. Like I can't roll that back. The significance of this loss will linger and it should linger. And those things are 100% true. But from an objective standpoint, the perception of your team week 3 and 4 versus week 1 is always wildly different.
Sure.
I came on the podcast last year after week 1 and said, I think the Bears have a shot to maybe sneak into the playoffs after they beat the Niners.
Fair. Fair.
And I think you probably weren't that far ahead, but you were like,
optimistic.
Hey, they might win 7-8 games.
Yes.
Giants fans probably think their team is cooked. Bengals fans probably think this season is in jeopardy, right?
Sure.
These things will change in 3 weeks. And I'm not saying the Bears are still going to win 10, 11 games. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, those are preseason things. Like, you got to play week by week. Now, I'm not going to do any more projections, predictions. But you have an opportunity to change the narrative. You have the opportunity to beat a team that you're better than in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then go and try to make a statement against a Chiefs team that's kind of reeling without Chris Jones and all of these different factors. And they lost to Detroit and all that. And we'll break that down in a couple weeks. But you're right. You're going to learn more about how they respond to the adversity that they faced in a absolutely crushing loss. And everyone knows in that locker room how bad that loss was. Well, guess what? Pick yourself back up, have a good week of practice, and go kick the Buccaneers' ass next week. And if they do that, Jake, if they were to win by 14 plus, or even 10 plus, or even 7 plus next week, like, what's our perception of this game at that point? Like, do we go back and then at that point do we say, hey, maybe it was a lot of new pieces, maybe it just was like it's still inexcusable, but maybe there's more things we can look at for, hey, this is why this happened.
I think that if the Bears just absolutely trounce the Buccaneers, like you're saying, I think the narrative is not, oh, well, the Bears might actually, maybe they figured something out. Unless it's a drastically different play calling situation where you're taking shots down the field and the defense is playing much tighter coverage. Because the thing is, like with Tampa, I know the focus is on their defense, and that might be how you lose that game. It's a lot of they have really good receivers still. Like Evans, did you see the touchdown catch he had yesterday? He's really good. So yeah, I mean, we'll get into that Wednesday, but I think to answer your question, I think the perception and the narrative would be more like, oh, well, it's Tampa being Tampa. They're falling back down to earth. And I think the narrative is, well, the Bears aren't as bad as they looked against Green Bay, but also the Buccaneers are not as good as they looked against Minnesota. I think it'll be more about everybody else and not about the Bears. Is that what I think will happen? I want to ask you something about, because we kind of alluded to it a little bit, and it's something that you said. You said you can't walk it back, that you can't say, oh, it's just week one. Does it bother you at all that some of the players were saying, oh, well, it's week one, it happens?
No, because that's the mentality you have to have if you're a player. It wasn't just
seemed
that
dismissive to me.
I don't think it was dismissive because,
and the quote's out of context, obviously, but
I think, are you referencing DJ Moore? Because he was
Tremaine Edmonds said the same thing as well. I think DeMarcus Walker said the same thing as well.
I mean,
in that same vein, TJ Edwards was the only one that was like, yeah, this sucks. Like, this really hurts. It's the Packers.
Fields said that too.
Fields, well, yeah, obviously. But like TJ, of the new guys, I was pointing out.
I mean, I think in general, like, they know everyone. Like, I think I didn't feel as if it was dismissive. Like, I felt like I think everyone knows the magnitude of the loss, and for most of them, it's now, and for all of them, it's now, we have to have a move on mentality. You are forced to have that mentality now. You know what I mean? Like, you are forced to look past week one. Like, you can't let that, if you let that linger, that's when things fall apart. So I think that's kind of what they're trying to, make the message in the locker room be is, hey, we understand that loss. Soak on it and think about it on Sunday and Monday, and think about how shitty that feels, so you make sure it doesn't happen again. But on Tuesday, it's a new week. We're 0-0. It's start the season fresh, basically. Put that one to the side, and you show yourself as a new football team from now on. So I didn't feel like it was dismissive, and I'm sure there's people who saw it that way, or like, oh, they're not taking accountability, they're making excuses of just week one. I don't think that's the case. I just think that in this situation, you're forced to try and move on. So
yeah, I want to address another question. Football CF Kenny made another good point. Like, how much blame does Poles take here? As of right now, on today, Monday, following a loss, a lot, because that was the criticism. Oh, you invested in linebackers instead of the pass rush, and you passed on Jalen Carter. Which, I mean, yeah, Jalen Carter looked awesome, but like, does anyone think you didn't need offensive line help? Is the problem too? So kind of we're in a lose-lose situation. Jalen Carter might be generational, but also you really needed Darnell Wright on this offensive line. So it's hard to say. I'm a little worried about Ryan Poles' approach to the offseason, to answer your question in the chat. But I think that, like Kevin said, things can change in 3 weeks. Like, does anyone think that Tremaine Edmonds isn't good at football? Like, does anyone think that, it's just that, yes, you had other things. I forget who it was. It was Draymond Jones, who was under contract. He maybe wanted to trade, but then got an extension, or somebody. I forget which defensive lineman, but I digress. Yeah, I mean, a little concerned, but that was always the case. Like, that was the thing is too, like, and Shane said, it was Shane obviously is out of here, but he made a comment in the chat before he left that it's the way you lost. And we kind of addressed it in the beginning of the show. It's not just that you lost, it's that you got just kicked all over the field. with ease, both defensively and offensively. It's just a really, really bad situation, and it just looked terrible. The optics are terrible. And I'm not going to kill Fields for the fumble or for the interception. Like, the interception was bad. It wasn't great. But at that point in the game, like, you got to take some risks. And you like, you're playing from behind.
You don't, like,
Talk is winding down.
Yeah.
You got to try and take some risks at some point. So I'm not going to kill Fields for that. It's just, he didn't have a terrible performance that makes you think. I mean, like, I tweeted it, but I was like half kidding, tongue in cheek. Like, all right, Caleb Williams when, but like, also
Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, like that was really fun. But like, it's just also like, he didn't have the coming out party that's like, oh yeah, this is our guy. All right, we're good. This part's good. It's just, you didn't learn anything, and that just isn't the best. Like, you were hoping to learn something about Fields in this week 1, and you just really didn't. And now the risk is that the team just might be really bad.
I don't think the team's gonna be really bad. I think the floor for this team is 6 wins. So I think the floor is 6 wins. I would be shocked.
After yesterday, I think there's serious bottom out potential here.
No. I don't. There's not. There's not bottom.
The absolute floor is last year's result.
No, I would disagree.
The basement, the catacombs, if you will.
3 wins.
Yes,
everything had to go wrong for them to get 3 wins last year.
So like,
maybe 5.
Are you assuming health? Is that what's happening?
I mean, yeah, because you can't not assume health. It's just
so you're assuming a healthy season. Okay,
yes.
I'm just saying, like, that's what when I say bottom out potential,
like,
that's
Fields
what I mean.
Gets hurt,
like,
yeah,
because like, you already have Kyler Gordon hurt, and he was one of your hopeful breakout guys. Like, Jaquan Brisker had to leave the game a couple. Like, that's what I mean. Like, that bottom out potential. By that I mean, like, 1 or 2 injuries, and it's you're in a real bad situation. Yeah, that's just what I mean.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. But assuming health, I think the floor is still 6 wins. But let's talk about Justin Fields. Let's do that. Let's get into it. We had it yesterday, Jake. We did our first post game, stream on 670 The Score with Olin Kreutz and Pat Manley. We had it in the comments.
I mean, we said this was going to happen.
Tyson Bagent.
Yeah,
they were there. We had a call this morning on Mullion Haw. Where's this Bagent kid? When this Justin Fields guy can't throw the football. That game's not on Justin Fields whatsoever. You can look back, and I'm sure when you watch the All-22, you can find plays where he could have hit a guy down the field.
Sure.
You can critique the fumble. Guess what? Jalen Hurts did the same exact thing with 3 minutes left in the game. Again, not 3 minutes. He did the exact same thing against the Patriots. Jalen Hurts, who everyone thinks is the MVP of the league, which might be true. Same exact thing with the fumble. The fumble I'm referencing. Try to run the ball. That's going to happen. Mm-hmm. When you're a guy like Justin Fields trying to make plays, the fumbles are going to happen. That's not a big deal. If you go through the All-22, you can find mistakes on Patrick. You can find more mistakes probably on Patrick Mahomes' resume from Thursday that you can find on Justin Fields. Just because they weren't throwing the ball down the field. Like, I'm not going to take a lot away from that. And my perception of him is not going to change for that, because the couple times that you threw down the field, one is a touchdown. It's a perfect ball in the corner of the end zone to Darnell Mooney. The other one is, he's trying to do a little bit too much. You're down 17. The game felt over at that point anyway. You try to fit into a hole. There was an absolute rocket. It gets picked off by Quay Walker. I'm not knocking Justin Fields in this game, but I still feel, and I know I said this, that it's going to take a couple of weeks for him to feel comfortable behind this offensive line. And boy, did he not have a reason to feel comfortable on Sunday. But I still didn't feel that confidence from him to have trust in his offensive line to protect for him. And like, again, you can't blame the guy. I mean, there's an image going around on Twitter of a drop back shotgun play where Fields is in the pocket, and literally all 4 offensive linemen for the Bears are facing the other way, and all 4 defensive linemen of the Packers are facing Justin Fields. And that's a decent defensive front. But it's not the Dallas Cowboys. It's not the Los Angeles Chargers. Like, that should not be happening. And I know people are going to say, you're making excuses. All you do is make excuses about Fields. Last year, he had no playmakers in offensive line. Now he's got the playmakers, but now this year he doesn't have the offensive line. When are we going to know? When are we going to find out? I'm sorry. It's not my fault. You can't learn it yet. You can't take it away yet until you give Justin Fields 2.5 seconds to throw. You're not going to know what he's capable of inside the pocket. And this is the thing too. Like, if you take a player like Anthony Richardson, who is not a prolific passer in college, like, maybe you can have those questions. But statistically, historically, if you give Justin Fields time in the pocket, he's going to make a good throw. It is a fact. We didn't just see it in college. We've seen it in the NFL. We saw it on Sunday. You give Justin Fields time, he'll make a throw. He'll make a play for you. It is a fact. But he just doesn't have the confidence yet to sit behind that offensive line and have enough time to deliver throws down the field. And that's why I thought part of the game plan would be to target DJ Moore intermediately, get you routes that can get him open. And they did it twice. They did it in the red zone. If you remember, they had the play that was sort of an out route that he, broke a tackle, got the first down. And then in the red zone against Jair Alexander's playing off coverage, playing soft, like 6 yards off. It might have even been a high route. He just looks at him, he says slant route. Another first down right there. That's what you should have been doing all day. Like, if you're concerned about the offensive line play, then that's the way you get around it. Not screen passes, not counter left. You run short routes with your great playmakers and get the ball in their hands and help make a play. So I'm like, I know you're not out on him. And I think in general, a majority of the fan base kind of is under that same, school of thought as far as, hey, the offensive line was so bad that you can't learn. So, I mean, that's what it boils down to. And again, we talked about it before, and I think that's just the key is he needs to just take control of the offense. And he does that on the field with his leg. Like, he takes control on the field. But this is before the game on Sunday control. This is going into the office and saying, this is the way we're going to do things. DJ, we're putting the ball in your hands. That's what we're going to do. But I just want to know your overall reaction and your overall evaluation of Fields.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put the kid out to sea yet. Yes, it's kind of like I said, we just didn't learn anything. The throw to Darnell Mooney, the touchdown throw, was incredible. Like, awesome throw. And like you said, I mean, with the slant route too, like calling that's great. It's kind of the things that we were hoping to see on a bigger scale and more than just a one play here or there. That's the thing. So I think you're right, Justin Fields, and maybe because you know what, and I mean this very, very complimentary. DJ Moore is a noted asshole. Like, he's famously got that edge. Maybe it's DJ Moore going to the outside. Like, I need the ball. Like, what are we doing? Because Justin Fields isn't that guy. And again, that's not a knock on Justin Fields. He's just a coachable guy. He's trying to, work with his coaches. That's fine. Like, I still believe that Justin Fields has the talent. Again, I'm not going to kill, the fumble wasn't great, but whatever. The interception, I'm not going to knock him for that because you're down by 1 billion and the clock's winding down. You got to try and make something happen. I get it. But I just wish I had learned more one way or the other. It didn't even have to be positive. I just wish I learned more one way or the other. And it's seeming like we've said all show, that Luke Getsy is just unwilling to let us learn that. And it's week 1. Maybe that changes. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, next week you have to be taking more vertical shots. You have to be and back to a point I made a few minutes ago, 10, 15 minutes ago. If you don't trust the offensive line to give Justin Fields a pocket to let things develop down the field, how are you going to trust them to adequately block for a screenplay? That doesn't make sense. That math does not make sense to me. So if you're going to pick one, pick the vertical game. Do that. Screenplays got you nowhere yesterday, and it's not going to help anything for Justin Fields with his confidence or with anything and how he feels about play calling. Just get more vertical. I'm so sick of screen passes. You don't win football games with screen passes. You just don't. You can have one or two.
Yeah.
You really want. But building your offense around screen passes is only going to end up in disaster every single time. So I'm still in on Justin Fields. I'm not going to, I'm not off the train yet. I'm not off the bandwagon yet. If he continues to, I don't even want to say devolve, but if things don't get better and we don't see that leap, whether that be because of Luke Getsy refusing to call the plays the right way or Justin Fields just not demanding that of his offensive coordinator, then we'll have that conversation when we get there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not calling for Tyson Bagent. We did say that. We said that in the season preview. The minute Justin Fields does something wrong, the minute they lose a game, those calls, those tweets, those texts are going to happen. And it's just one very small subsection of insane people on Twitter. And other than that, like it's Justin Fields' team for until further notice. Still,
the list of players that Justin Fields threw for more yards on Sunday: Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow. Like, you know,
but like,
and sure, contact,
sure,
but like, so many people want to point to the stats when it comes to Justin Fields.
Sure, yeah.
Point to the stats.
Yep.
He's on pace to throw for 3,700 yards statistically. You know what I mean? Like if that's your case, it's a bad one. So I don't know. I just like, and I think too, like, did he go over his rushing total? He had 59. I don't know what his rushing total was.
Like, it was in the 40s.
I think what I personally was worried about this year was he would be so focused on passing the ball from the pocket that he would get rid of what makes him great, right? Like
being an athlete, yeah.
Being an athlete. Like whether you like it or not, whether you believe it's sustainable or not, that's what makes him great. Even if he only has 10 years of it, and by the time he's 34, he's going to have to throw more. Use your legs while you can. Use what makes you great while you can. He did that 9 carries, 59 yards. He had a couple of plays, especially in that first half, where he extended plays for first downs. Those things are just impossible for defenses to game plan for. So I like that he's not taking that away. Had a nice little 14 fantasy points for me. That was fine. We'll take it. One other positive before we break down. We have one positive from the game. We have a positive from the game. Believe it or not, something good we've learned something good from the game. Roschon Johnson is RB1.
He might be really good.
He might be really good. As a pass catcher,
yeah.
Where did this come from? 6 receptions, 35 yards, 5.5 average. Big plays, trucking people.
Yeah.
He had a rushing touchdown.
He's a big dude.
5 carries for 20 yards. We knew that he was that type of runner as a bruiser, right? And that's what we kind of thought his role would be in this offense as a rookie. Yeah, you're run through people on 3rd and 1. That's what you're going to do. He looked more versatile than that.
Yep.
And Khalil Herbert had a couple of chunk plays. He was fine. But I think, like, when you watch Roschon Johnson run the football, it felt inspiring.
It was intimidating.
It was intimidating. It was inspiring. It got me off my couch when he struck. I was like, let's go. This is Bears Packers. We're going to have a chance in this. Like, all of the things. And you kind of need that. You need that, man. That's what you need from players across the roster. And I feel like you don't get that from any other players. You get it from Roschon Johnson. Big day for him. I would love to see him be RB1, get up front of the carries. And I thought Foreman was fine in a couple spots too. He was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that Roschon Johnson's going to be moving up the depth chart. I think he's going to get a significantly higher share of the carries and the workload next week, which is good. So yeah, that I'm trying to read fast. Hey, that's what we're here for on Monday. Shout out to everybody in the
Football CF Candy, everyone. He says, just a final question before I head out. Shout out to you guys for making this pod and helping me get through my Monday. Yeah, man.
I mean, the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, his question, we didn't read the question.
Yeah.
How long do you have to evaluate the GM plus the coaching staff? Poles needs to do better.
I mean, the coaching staff, historically, GMs last longer than coaches. I mean, I still think that Eberflus would have to be truly awful for the rest of the year to get fired. Poles, I think he's got a long leash.
Poles got a long leash. Because he didn't even draft the quarterback.
And because the approach to the draft of stockpiling assets is the correct way to go about it too. Even if he's not making the correct, at least on the surface right now after 1 week, additions of free agency, like, I don't know. I think this is a years long thing. Just look at how long they gave Pace and Nagy. So this ownership is famously very patient when it comes to that. So
I got one more thing for you. We have to remember that we root for 2 teams on Sundays. We root for the Chicago Bears and we root against the Carolina Panthers.
Yep. Whoever is playing the Carolina
Bears went 1-1 this week. The Panthers lose. We're 1-1. I don't know why everyone's crying. We're 500. We're gonna get that #1 overall pick. We're feeling great. What are we doing here? We're 1-1. Come on now. Let's get the spirits up. Everybody in the chat, this is a good day. Panthers lose. Panthers lose.
Idiot.
We're going to have the number 1 and number 2 overall pick.
All right, we will be back on Wednesday to break down the upcoming Week 2 matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We did a little bit today. We kind of got a little sidetracked into that, but we'll go full breakdown. We'll go through the rosters, what we expect. Of course, we'll have quotes from more people in the Bears, offices and at Alice Hall. So, come with us on Wednesday. We'll be here. We're going to break down the preview of the Buccaneers game. So until then, appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate all the listeners, all the viewers. Hard day, not the most fun pod we've ever done, but pressure makes diamonds, baby. So that's what we're here for. All right, join us on Wednesday for the Tampa preview. Until then, for myself, for Kevin Lapka, as always, this has been Bears Nation Podcast.